You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. We had full access to LSU football practice on Thursday. Gave you a complete practice report. Of course, a ton of attention was on the quarterback position. As a matter of fact, after the practice, Garrett Nussmeier, who was limited, Brian Kelly was asked if he's seen any separation at quarterback so far through a week of camp. Here's what Brian Kelly said.
Not yet. No, I think that you have a very competitive situation still going on. You know, as we mentioned, you know, Nuss would have been in there taking, you know, first team reps as well. You know, Miles is as effective and as smart as any quarterback. And Walker Howard, I mean, he continues to, you know, for a freshman, amaze me in terms of what his knowledge base is and the strength of his arm. So, no, we're not ready to kind of change our thought process relative to who's getting what reps at this point.
The way he said it's interesting, and I don't know that he meant anything deeper by it, but Brian Kelly said we're not changing our thought process as to who's getting what reps. That doesn't mean necessarily he doesn't have an idea of what direction he's going. Now, I'm one, and my hand is in the air, where I said I believed coming into this camp that this coaching staff did not know who their starting quarterback was going to be, and I firmly believe that. They may have a preference of what they would like to see transpire based on what they want to do offensively, but I truly believe when they went onto the practice field for the first practice, they did not know who is going to be the starter against Florida State. And they may still not know, but it is becoming clearer, and I think everyone who's watched this team practice now, it's evident that you got a two-horse race with the two guys who are more athletic and more mobile with Daniels and Nussmeier. Nussmeier's injury has given Daniels more of an opportunity to take the first team reps. And there's been conversation that Daniels has taken more of those in the team periods that we haven't seen. So I think realistically, we all need to start sort of calibrating the possibility of what a Jayden Daniels-led offense is going to look like. And yes, before you even start, that has been my take all along. Okay, so I'm not doing this just as a validation or an affirmation of what I said, because I've told you all along that when I said I thought Jayden Daniels would win the starting job, it was with very little confidence and based solely on a lot of circumstantial evidence. Like, you didn't need to go get him if you didn't want him. He's the guy who's by far the most experienced with 30 career starts. You have a coaching staff that once, through their history, has shown they want a mobile quarterback. He's a mobile quarterback. So a lot of that is circumstantial, but, and I'll tell you this honestly, when we were going through the practice report, one of the things that I did not mention intentionally was Jayden Daniels' accuracy. There is this belief, notion, call it what you want, about Jayden Daniels that he struggles to throw the football. And my suspicion, he struggles to throw accurately. Let me finish that sentence. And my suspicion is that LSU fans watched him in the spring game. I mean, none of you or us got to watch him play in spring, but you watched him play in the spring game, and you made a sweeping generalization based on a scrimmage after the guy had been on campus, like literally been here for a month. I mean, he showed up like a week before spring practice started. No knowledge of the offense, his coaches, no timing with any of the receivers, none of that. And if you saw some errant throws, it's, oh, well, he's an inaccurate passer. And I think that what has happened, and this may be incorrect, I'm telling you, this may be incorrect, but I think what has happened is that what often happens on the internet and social media and Twitter and things like that is you have an internet echo chamber. And that just became the accepted truth about Jayden Daniels. Fast, athletic runner, inaccurate passer. That's just sort of been the narrative about Jayden Daniels. Now, I wanted, and I didn't talk about it yesterday after practice, but someone asked me this morning, hey, could you tell if Jayden Daniels has improved on his accuracy? And I've told you this as well, that I've seen a lot of Jayden Daniels at Arizona State. And it's for a couple of primary reasons. I'm a football junkie, and I do whiskey and wine with T-Bob, and then I would go home and I'd stay up till 1:30 in the morning watching Pac-12 After Dark. So I've seen a lot of Arizona State football. Number two, Ryan Clark, who you all know is a friend. His son Jordan, who I've seen play since he was, a young guy, went to Arizona State, the same class with Jayden Daniels. So I've been watching Arizona State because I wanted to see Jordan Clark play. And then a young guy from Catholic High, George Hart, who walked on at Arizona State this last year and got to play a ton. And George went to school where my wife is is the counselor. So we've known that family a long, long time. I wanted to see George play. So I've watched inadvertently, I've watched a lot of Jayden Daniels over the last 3 years. And I've never thought to myself, man, what a good-looking prospect. He just can't throw accurately. I'm not saying that he's Drew Brees. I'm not saying he's going to complete 72% of his passes. I'm not saying he's what Joe Burrow was in 2019. I'm just telling you, I haven't looked and said, man, that's a huge issue for him. Of course he can improve, but I've never thought that's a problem. And so I kind of set out to maybe debunk that or to prove or disprove that. Y'all, Jayden Daniels last year at Arizona State completed 65% of his passes. That led the Pac-12. He was number one in the Pac-12 in completion percentage. And oh, by the way, he led the Pac-12 in completion percentage with receivers you've never heard of. The number 2 leading pass catcher at Arizona State last year was their running back. If you go back to his freshman season, he completed just under 61% of his passes. That's the season a lot of people talk about. 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had a first-round draft pick at receiver he was throwing to that year. Subsequently, they've had a dearth of talent. We know what's happened with Herm and everything there. And really not a very thin receiving core. The 2020 season, in some respects, you crumple it up into a ball and throw it out because, yeah, you only played a handful of games. Everything was disrupted by COVID, and particularly in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 because they started later, and you all know that whole thing with what happened there. I mean, he only attempted 84 passes in the COVID season. So you forget it. So as a freshman, he completed roughly 61% of his passes, 17 touchdowns, 2 picks. Last year, because they had no receivers, they threw more to the backs. He threw for fewer yards, but increased his completion percentage to nearly 66% and led the Pac-12. I guess my point is, when he's had star talent at receiver, he was really good at hitting big plays and stretching the field and hurting defenses with his feet as well, moving the pockets, tucking it and run, throwing on the run. And then when they didn't have great receiver talent, they had to play the more short intermediate game, he led the Pac-12 in completion percentage. So I don't know if Jayden Daniels is going to be LSU's starting quarterback. I don't. I've told you I think that's what's going to happen. And I think even if it's not the first game, I think it'll happen at some point. I think we're going to see all these guys. I think we'll see Daniels and Nussmeier. And if Brennan sticks around, I'm guessing he's going to get a shot to play at some point this year. I think we're going to see these guys. Best case, someone just races to the forefront, grabs a hold of the job and never lets it go. But the idea that Jayden Daniels is just an athletic guy that can't throw is just false. Like we saw yesterday, even when they were at practice and they're doing this target practice where they're throwing all these different routes to different parts of the end zone. I mean, dude was bullseyeing it, just like the other guys were. I mean, we watched them throw. I mean, there was one point where I walked to the opposite field, and it was just the quarterbacks, and Chris Hilton was over there catching the pass. He was the only receiver. It was just a quarterback drill. And they were doing a quick step and like throwing from the left hash 5 yards downfield across to the right sideline. And brother, just dimes. I mean, if that's the thing that's preventing you from thinking, oh, he could be a competent starting quarterback, I think you kind of need to buck that idea. Again, I'm not saying that he's Drew Brees at the end of his career completing 70% of his passes, but I mean, I even went and looked up some scouting reports on Daniels. There was one scouting report that had Daniels as a top 6 quarterback in this past year's draft had he come out. There's another scout that compared Jayden Daniels to Trey Lance, who was the 3rd pick in the draft. I'm not saying he's going to be that guy. I'm not saying he's going to be a first-round pick. What I'm saying is there's this almost accepted idea that he's just an athletic guy but is inaccurate throwing the ball. And I'm telling you, there is a ton of evidence, like visual proof, watching this guy start over 3 seasons that suggests, no, he's plenty capable enough. And if you give him Kayshon Boutte and Malik Neighbors and Jack Besh and Kyron Lacey and Brian Thomas and Chris Hilton and those running backs, he's going to be even better. So I'm excited to see it. I don't know if Daniels is going to be the guy. I'm sure there's some of you who are going to take this as, Matt, you're just trumpeting the thing you've been saying all along so you sound right. But my point to you would be, there's a reason I've been saying it all along. So let's see how it transpires. But I would challenge you more so to not be part of a internet echo chamber where you just accept something as fact that you read on Twitter and use your eyes and go look and see and go, man, that guy's actually pretty good. And I think he is. And if he starts it for LSU, I think he'll have a really good year. I think any of the quarterbacks that start will actually put up good numbers with a lot of really good skill guys. And that includes Jayden Daniels. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.